My most prized piece of knowledge and the thing that I'm most proud of is how I attacked every day. You know, I'm a big sports fan. I'm really into hard work, and I'm really into, attack mode, and having the game face on. And probably the thing I loved most about my studying was how I approached each day. And from day one of medicine all the way till now, I have the same philosophy, is to master a concept, and concepts are probably the most important thing, especially for step one that you will encounter. Out. I was so confident. I was taking MBMEs and I was, getting 260s and high 250s on my MBMEs, and I was very confident. It doesn't matter. On the day that I sat in that exam, I sat in that chair, my heart was racing. I was shaking, I was jittery, I was very nervous because I know this is going to reflect my career for the rest of my life. I wanted to kill this exam. I wanted to be in that top 10% in the nation. So my focus was on where I knew everyone else focuses was away from. It's not really about how smart you are, but it is your work ethic and its determination and it's your mentality from day one that you set for yourself every day, so on forth, until you take that exam. Hi, my name is Alexander Alsadi, and I'm a third-year med student and Director of Education for MEDspiration. In this week's episode, I'll be going over how I scored a 254 on the USMLE Step 1 exam. We'll be exploring how I studied like a Harvard student, how I avoided getting tied into meaningless activity, how I set a daily goal and mastered one concept at a time, how I used my resources most effectively, and my experience on the day of the exam.
I have a watch that got a stopwatch built into it. And I spend 6 hours every day, not looking for books or walking across the street to the library or something like that, but I spend 6 hours a day of actively studying, which means at this desk, at a book, or in the library at a videotape. 6 hours. And if I take a break to get a cup of coffee or to go to the bathroom, I click off the watch.
Within my first week of studying medicine, I was watching a lot of videos like these about how to study, and because I had no clue. I was watching a lot of documentaries, and I stumbled upon a Harvard documentary from the 80s, and where they followed about 8 to 10 doctors from the first day of med school to about 30 years after their career to show what their life was like. What I wanted to take from it was how they studied, really. I loved watching it, but one of the things I've always taken with me is how one of the students, he would have his respected books for his classes, and he'd go home every day and he'd set a timer for 6 hours. And he was reading the same book that I had, he was reading all the old Robin books for pathology. There's no reason why, if he's reading a book and timing himself 6 hours a day and has that mentality of becoming a great physician, I can have that same mentality. And I don't need to go to Harvard to study like that Harvard medical student.
When first I met Warren, we were talking about getting together and doing something again, and he pulled out his calendar, and the pages were so blank. And I said, wow, you've managed to avoid getting tied into a lot of kind of meaningless activity. And Warren said, yeah, you have to be good at saying no and picking the things that really make a difference. And
before getting into how you study every day and what to study every day, it's very important to have a mentality for this profession, and the mentality is the same for when you practice, or it's the same you're in residency. It's the same for me as studying for my Step 2 CK, and the same for all the people studying for Step 1 and the first day of med school, and that mentality is about prioritizing, making sacrifices and prioritizing what is important in your life right now. And everything else kind of clears your mind, and you really start to focus on medicine, because that is what our goal is, to be professional doctors and to be good at what we do. Before I knew anything in medicine, before I knew about any topics, any subjects, I told myself the first day, I want to excel. I'm not always the best at everything, but I am going to try every day, and I'm going to work hard every day to be the best. In the beginning I had a lot of trial and error, but as I started studying more and reading more and understanding a little more, I decided to make an approach which was probably a pivotal point in my learning experience, was having a daily goal every day. My ultimate goal was to do well on step 1, but in order to get there, I had to accomplish many smaller goals, and it broke down all the way from a monthly goal to a weekly goal, and down to a daily goal. And the daily goal is what really has carried me in my career this far. And that goal was to master a topic each and every day. No matter if it was embryology in your first year med school, and anatomy and biochemistry, it's just to take one topic. If we're doing metabolism for biochemistry, for example, when I get home that day, I tell myself, okay, I am going to master the fed state from the first bite I take into a piece of bread, into all of the pathways it goes into, big picture of how it gets digested, where the energy is used, and where the excess food and nutrition is going to be stored. And I wouldn't stop that night until I could do it, until I mastered that concept. And as soon as I mastered that one concept, I would put it to the side. I would be so proud of myself, because when we're studying every day, we think we have to know everything all right now. I gotta know it all now. And that's not true, Just know one thing very, very well today, and then leave it behind. Because when I come back, in a couple weeks or a month, even if I don't remember it that well, I do remember that I mastered it once. And if I have that confidence in myself that I remembered how and I understand that concept one time, once it comes back to me, it'll click just like that, and then I'll be even more confident about myself that I understand it still. And that's the daily goal. The daily goal is to master a concept and to understand it well, and then to put it aside and then master a new concept. So every morning I wake up and I'd say, what am I going to master today? And it was a great feeling. It was a great feeling to have, because after 2 months of mastering one concept every day, you are becoming a medical doctor, and you are starting to understand medicine as a whole. Because once you start mastering these concepts, you're going to learn that a lot of them go together. And now I've just broadened my horizons with these concepts. I mastered one large concept. The next day I'd master this one. 2 months later, I realized 3 or 4 concepts all are on the umbrella of another big concept, which is then, mind blowing. That's when I really started to love medicine. I just got even chills saying that right now. Well, from first and second year med school, I used as little resources as possible. For each subject, I had the respected book, and I would read it and watch videos as well. I didn't get, the Bible until second year med school. This is an amazing book. I never used the first aid as a learning tool. Okay, I never recommend it to any of the students that I help, that I mentor and stuff. I tell them use it as an outline, because this book, the first aid, has everything you need to know. Not at all everything about what you need to know, but it has all of the topics, all of the diseases, all of the drugs, has everything that you need to know. I was implementing it in my studies every day, but I never studied the first aid. And I think that's very important to know, is what to study and what to use as an outline. And that's what this is an outline. UWorld is your primary learning tool. It is where you understand everything in medicine, and it will provide you all the concepts you will need to know for your USMLE Step 1. And I recommend to my students now that are prepping for the step, if you have 3 or 4 months prep time roughly, then you do study a topic every day, and you do 10 to 15 questions a day in the beginning. The first time you go through UWorld, I only do questions based off of what I just learned. So if I'm doing gastropathology, I study it for 4 or 5 hours that day, and then I go and do 10 to 15 gastropathology questions that night to test myself to see if I have learned all the information appropriately. You don't just do UWorld one time, You do UWorld the first time, which will take you several months. It could take you 6 months. It could take you a very long time to go through it thoroughly, and that means that's good. So the first time through, I always do subject-based, and I highly recommend it because you're learning. If you go through UWorld thoroughly one time and you finally understand it, then you go through UWorld again. Now this is where you try to prep yourself to try to get more comfortable with answering questions fast, thoroughly, and effectively. And that is when you do UWorld timed and you do it random. You do it block, timed random, you see how well you do, and then you review. A colleague of mine had the pleasure of having Dr. Sitar, creator of Pathoma, lecture him for pathology. He stated that his students averaged over a 250 and they each did UWorld 3 times. And actually, his videos were another important tool I incorporate into my studies. After an exhausting day of reading and doing questions, Pathoma videos were a great way to complete my daily routine. And what is the only way to really test yourself if you're making progress coming up to your exam is going to be to take an MBME. Took 6 MBMEs, and every one of them I learned a lot from, because I took the time to research all the answers and find out the topics and the concepts that the MBMEs were covering, and I went over those concepts. And so that's the only way to test yourself from everyone else, is to take an MBME and to truly compare yourself to the other people in the United States, and that's how you know if you're prepared. As soon as I would take my MBME, it gives you a great breakdown. I mean, you pay the extra $10, get the breakdown, of course, and you see what your weaknesses are. So if I was studying for the exam and I did well on a lot of categories, but then I noticed, my biochem was, at below average, or my anatomy was below average, and I would take the next 3 or 4 days to just hammer those topics. All the concepts possibly, all the high yield concepts I could think of, anything about those topics, and just try to master them within this small amount of time as much as possible. And then I would study the high yield topics as well, and then I would take another MBME. And then I'd see all my weaknesses. Then I'd focus on those weaknesses, and I would constantly be working on weaknesses over and over and over again until my weaknesses were my strengths. And that happened on my exam, all the stuff that I did the worst in my MBMEs, I did the best on my actual exam because I constantly worked on them, It doesn't matter who you are, I don't care how smart you are, I don't care, how long you've studied, you will have tachycardia on the first 15 minutes of your exam. Like, no matter what. First 15 minutes of the exam, I was so nervous, I was sweating a little bit. It was, just thinking about it even kind of like makes me a little nervous. But after those 15 minutes, you calm down. Okay, these are just like UWorld questions, because they are, the same concepts. They're asking about this disease and this mechanism. I know that, and go through it like this. So once you start doing a little more of the questions, you see the repetition. Step 1 is all about foundational medicine. So there's nothing new about the concepts they ask on the step 1. It's just how they ask it is the hard part. So extracting what the concept is probably the most difficult thing on the step 1. You don't change anything. Everything you've done prior to the exam, if you wake up at 6 in the morning and you eat breakfast and you have a cup of coffee, do the exact same routine on the day of the exam, because you don't want to push any kind of balance off with your body, with your homeostasis. It's very important to be the same, be neutral as you were for the past 6 months on that exam day. Okay, because if you're confident, past 6 months, you've been doing very well in the 6 months, if you stay the same way on that exam day, you will be just as successful, I promise you. But one of the things I wanted to mention, having a good score is amazing, that's the mentality I had, and that's something that I take pride in is my score, because it reflects how hard I've worked the past few years. But I just want to mention, that a score will not get you a residency. That is the ultimate goal for us med students, is to match. And a score will get you an interview. And I promise you this, a score will get you an interview, but it will not get you the matching spot in that residency program. your personality does, the kind of person you are. So yes, scores will open doors, but your personality and the person you are will get you the residency. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope this video was beneficial to you. If you have any topics or subjects that you'd like for me to cover in the future, just comment below. Thank you. Effort that you can possibly have. One of the quotes that I've really come to bring a part of my daily studies is shit, I forgot the quote. Listen, is fuck.
That's good.
I don't know.
That's a good idea.
I don't know. I forgot what I even just said right there.
That happens.
It's like I blacked out.
That's a blooper.